You're listening to the Cambridge Insider Podcast. On today's episode, hosts Stephen and Mariah will discuss the 5 different Cambridge team members that support a school's international program directly. Today's episode is sponsored by Oakwood School. At Oakwood School, they foster curiosity, mastery, and independence in students from preschool to grade 12 through their 5 tenets of founding philosophy: passionate expertise, confident self-expression, high academic expectations, grounded moral examples, and unbridled exploration. Thanks for listening.
Cambridge Insider Podcast time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cambridge Insider Podcast, episode 2. Mariah, help me out. Season 4?
Season 4.
Wow. We've done a lot of work.
Yeah, we have.
As always, my co-host, Mariah Thompson. How are you?
I am doing well. I am in New York for this podcast, so it is freezing here versus Texas, but that's all right. We'll take it.
They're like a true southerner, right? It's like just the summer has just ended and you think it's freezing. It's really not freezing. It is beautiful weather outside on the East Coast. Today's episode I'm really excited about because it really is the start of the new year. We have students that are in classes. We have host families that are hosting. We have schools that have kicked off just great experiences and great international programs for their international kids. And we thought it would be a very good use of our time at the Cambridge Insider Podcast to just give you an idea of your support structure. Your support structure that Cambridge Network provides both you as a school partner, but also the students. And the reason we want to provide that is, I think, twofold. Number one, we have a lot of potential school partners that are listening to this that want to explore Cambridge, want to see if we, provide them with what they might need for their international program. So this is a great way for you to just see all the incredible support that we provide at Cambridge. We hands down, unequivocally provide the best student, host, and international program support across the country. There is no doubt about that. We also want to be able to provide this information to our current school partners, because I know you sit down at the beginning of the school year and there's a million different people that might be contacting you, and it could be a little overwhelming. Understand that, all those people have a place, and they really are just here to make this entire international program of yours as seamless as possible and provide the support. So we want you to be able to understand the different positions. Mariah, have I missed anything in just, explaining why we're doing this episode?
No, and I just feel like at the beginning of the school year, everyone just needs a little recap. If you already know this information, you probably will need it again just to remind you, because it's a new year and you never know what's going to pop up. And maybe you didn't need the support last year, but you might need it again this year. So to just have a refresher, we would love to give that to you.
Absolutely. So let's start from the top, not from the top necessarily hierarchical.
This is top of our list.
That's the top of our list. That's a great way to explain it. Let's start at the top of our list. Every school that comes, that partners with Cambridge will be assigned a program manager. Essentially, for the majority of our schools across the country, I will be that program manager. And it really is my role to just oversee the entire program, to talk strategically about the strength of your program and what we could be doing to improve the strength of that program, and to really work on any escalated school issues. So anytime you as a school or a potential school, feel that, something's not quite going right, or you don't quite know who to reach out to, your program manager, aka me, will be the one to walk you through that. We've been seeing just a lot of great, from my point of view, a lot of great strategic conversations with schools that are sitting down, that are going, hey, the market has improved, Stephen. What can I be doing more? How can I improve my program? I want more students here. I want more diversity on campus. And those are really the conversations that we focus on, because those are conversations that are beneficial to our students that want to come to the US, but also beneficial to our schools and the great programs that they offer. So that's the program manager.
What's your most common phone call you get from schools? Just so they know, like, oh, this is the type of question I either should be asking, or I can ask this question.
Of course. Honestly, the most common one I get is, Stephen, I want to recruit more students. How do I do that? And it's a conversation we have I've discussed several times on the podcast. So if you want to look back at a couple episodes, but again, I'm more than happy, more than willing to set up a call with you, to sit down with CFOs, with boards of directors, with principals, heads of schools, and just discuss that and see where you are currently, really analyze where your international program is right now, what has happened in the past couple of years to get to where you are right now, look at the market as a whole, and then individually for your program, look at what we can do, what we suggest from Cambridge's side to improve that, and ultimately to be able to help you recruit more kids to your campus.
Great.
I will say that, sorry, I was gonna only because I feel very passionate about the SSAs, which are the Student Support Associates. Mariah and I focused on getting that right. The SSAs, who really are my quote unquote right-hand man, right-hand woman in the position that I am in. Every school will also be assigned a SSA. They are typically a team that is based in Chengdu, China. And they just do a lot of that administrative work. Everything from collecting marketing materials, to reaching out to you about your student recruitment plans, to setting up interviews, to sending through student applications, to following up on student I-20s and student decisions. So you will be hearing a lot as a school from your SSAs. They are incredibly good at what they do. They are just an incredible team. I oversee that team. I'm just so proud of all the work that they've done, and they really are an asset to any good, well-functioning international program. So look after your SSAs. They will also be reaching out to you. Sorry, Mariah, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. I was honestly going to transition into the SSAs anyways. But so for maybe a new partner or a new transitioned, if you're in the position for the first time, how can they expect communication? Because the SSAs are in China. What can they expect? Do they come on email? Do they do WeChat? Like, what's the time gap so they can understand, like, oh, I can't quickly get back in touch with them? What would that look like for, like, just the process of communication?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing I will say is that every single school has a school email address. Typically, it would be your school name at cambridgenetwork.com. But if you don't have that email address, or you don't know what that email address is, reach out to me. That email address contains your entire support team on it. So if you have a query and you don't know who to reach out to, or who's awake, or who's in China, who's in the US, who's in Vietnam, who's in Korea, you reach out to that email address. But typically our SSA team, because they're in China, from the US perspective, on average are about a 12 hours ahead. So if it's 8 o'clock, in the morning, on the East Coast, it would typically be 8 p.m., I think around 8 p.m. Take that with a pinch of salt, in Chengdu, China. However, our teams have a great, I want to say almost a 24-hour at the most turnaround time on getting back to you. But if it is an emergency, of course, I am on the East Coast in the US. We have team members that are on the West Coast that are able to respond in a timely manner for any of those issues. But typically, there is a couple hour delay between the communication you have with your SSA. I typically say to schools, if you're emailing them, sometime in the day, US time, you should expect the next morning that there would be an answer for you.
Great. Let's move on to a little. So all our support ends up indirectly supporting schools, but we have some roles that not strictly, but mainly focus on student support. And we just want to give that an update. So let's talk about the Family Education Advisor.
The FEA. Absolutely. The FEA is such an important role, right? Their primary role is the support and that communication between and for students that are on the ground in the US, host families, and that communication between students, host families, and natural parents, as well as the communication with the school. So any student-related issues, schools would be hearing from an FEA, a Family Education Advisor. Anything that's happening in the host homes, schools will be hearing about that, from the FEA. Importantly, and this is a big change that Cambridge made a couple of years ago, we shifted that position specifically to provide support in from a team that is in China, so they're able to communicate effectively with the natural parents and with the students. We just felt that language barrier between students and some of our local support staff was just a big hindrance on the type of communication, on the type of support that we were able to offer. So our entire FEA team is based in China. They communicate with students basically via WeChat, via phone calls, and via email, but specifically via WeChat. And we've just found that first language support that they're able to provide and give that and communicate that back to natural parents has just been, so valuable. You can imagine for yourself. I gave this example to a school the other day, to a head of school, and we were chatting about that position. I said to them, can you imagine being, thousands and thousands of miles away in a country that you've probably never been to before? You don't speak, your primary language is not the language that they speak there. Who would you want to connect with on a weekly basis to provide you with support, to help you, to guide you? It would be somebody from your home country that understands the culture but is able to communicate to you on your own terms, using the medium of communication that you use, right? So that's typically what our FEA team does.
Yeah, I do want to add, majority of our students are from China, but I do believe that if the student isn't from China, we do have just someone on Cambridge staff that does speak their language. Yes, majority of our students are from China, so majority of our FEAs are from China, but we do have, if we don't have someone directly on staff that speaks that language, we always contact someone who can translate and step in when we do have those really specific needs for the student, where it's just really important for them to speak in their own language. We make sure, because I remember we had someone who speaks Spanish, and so we have an LSC that speaks Spanish. So anytime that we need a specific translation, we contact them as well to make sure that their natural tongue is there, because sometimes you just can't express emotions in the way that you would want to. It just gets a little confusing. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them the best way we can, which will go into our next role, the local support coordinator, which is a more newer role in the last 2 years as we've switched functions within our whole Cambridge staff. Stephen, do you want to mention anything about the LSCs?
I feel like you're probably a little closer to that role than I am, but I will say the main reason why we have this role is because we understood that, when we did take our FEA team and place them, so not solely, but more focused on that language and being able to communicate effectively, I think some of our schools felt, but who do we have in case of an emergency? I will say this to all of our schools: in case of a real emergency, call 911. Call, go to an emergency room. I think that's often, it sounds sort of, obvious, but I think schools are like, oh, but who am I going to call? Let's be honest, in a real emergency, a student is going to be driven to an emergency room, or you're going to call 911 for emergency services. That's a true emergency. Yeah. But I'm going to let you explain a little bit about the LSC.
Yeah. I always say for host families and in school, like, if it was your own child and your own family and you would call 911, then you call 911 for the student. There's no difference. But we do have a host hotline. So if there is like an emergency, when it just comes to like a language barrier, you can't figure something out and you really need to figure it out right away, or there's an issue, we all know the amount of issues that could add up. There is a hotline that you can, helpline that you can call, which we can talk in further later. But so that's like not your emergency hotline, but like it is your emergency hotline if it's not a 911 call. But yeah, so the local support coordinator, like Stephen said, we know the value of having people on the ground. So we have in every city that we have schools, we have a local support coordinator that has designated hours every month we do our monthly check-ins. I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe that they have quarterly or bi-quarterly events that they're planning. Like, I just know in the last week we had an LSC take people to Niagara Falls, and then there was another one in New York City where they went to a Broadway show. So they have local events that they want to coordinate to have the students come together, meet the host families, and that is our goal, is to have things like that at least once or twice within the school year. On the grounds, if we can do it, and if there's interest in that program. Sometimes we just get students that are like, yeah, I don't want to go to any of that, which is sad, but we understand that too. But that is the goal for them, as well as just be there if there is an emergency and we need someone on the grounds. We have someone that is hired by us on a monthly basis to go and to be there for the students, and the students will know them regularly. So we do have that role, and I would say because it's a newer role, just have grace with us because we're trying to figure out what the exact needs of students will be. So like last year, it was a little bit different than this year. So we implemented a little bit more tasks for them, even a little bit different structure for them of how we're contacting them. So like as we're really figuring out that role, we're doing it because we want it to be the best. We want it to be the best for the students. We want it to be the best for the natural parents to know they have someone there. So I would say that role is going to be continuously refined, but only for the better. Just like any new role or new position you have to like, all right, what's going to work, what's not going to work. But we are really pleased and really happy to have our LSCs on the team. We have a coordinator that is training them and is regularly in touch with them. So the ones that we have on staff, we really do enjoy having there. So I just say as we keep going and growing, it'll only get better, the support for that.
Absolutely. Well said, Mariah. And, I think all the roles that we've been through now are so incredibly vital. They all hit a different area of support. But again, it's aimed at continuing to, that long-standing tradition of Cambridge just providing incredible student, host family, natural parents, and school support. All these positions are really aimed at continuing that. So feel free to reach out. We do have one more position. The host recruitment manager is really the final position that we just want to introduce our schools to today. Really a position that is school specific in terms of how we want to introduce them. They work specifically with recruiting hosts for a school community. We will go into the details of why this is important in the next episode, but we really do want to make a change. In the past, the host recruitment managers have been really working hard in the back end and doing just an incredible job building up those host communities. We really want to integrate them more closely with our schools. And I will say as a final word from my side, the reason why we want to do that is because the schools really hold the key to those strong host communities. They understand their community well. They have a great list of contacts that are friends and alumni and parents and teachers of the school that are interested or know somebody that's interested in hosting. And we really do believe in, the values that a school has is often shown in that community that the school has. And those are the people that we want to host for the school and to host for Cambridge. So our host recruitment managers is somebody that we're going to be introducing systematically to our schools and somebody that we really want the schools to be comfortable with chatting to, helping, strategizing about in terms of how we can build that host community. We'll go into a little bit more detail about why that is so incredibly important, specifically as we kick off this new school year. Mariah, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that just echoing everything you said about we want the host recruitment team to be more involved in school. And it's just because we want host families that are a part of the community. We will see the longest, the most retention out of those hosts that are part of the community. And then we see most retention out of the students that live with families that are connected to the community. So we want to be connected to your community in that way as well. So in an upcoming episode, we will go into a deep dive of what that looks like and how we can best support you and how we can best connect to your community. And we'll probably have one of our host recruitment managers on the call with us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think enough has been said. I hope our schools, our students, potential school partners, host families, natural parents, everybody that listens to this understands that, there's a great amount of support out there. Feel free to reach out. That's why we are here. We're here to support. We're here to make sure that students, schools, hosts all have a seamless experience in that. Long may international education continue to thrive at the Cambridge Network. Mariah, any final thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I'll just recap the titles so you can remember them one more time. Program Manager, Student Support Associate, Family Education Advisor, Local Support Coordinator, and Host Recruitment Manager. Those are your 5 supports that you have, as well as you have a whole Cambridge team, but those are your main 5.
Typically the people that would be reaching out to you. To all of our listeners, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember to like, listen, subscribe, share the podcast. And Mariah and I will catch you around the next episode of the Cambridge Insider Podcast. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Cambridge Insider Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss an episode. For more Cambridge updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Have a great week and stay connected.